The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
Well, it's a lovely day. Actually, I'm doing really well. So a little bit of Love Sweetie podcast trivia. I tried not to wear the same shirt, the same outfit for any of these episodes. And I wanted to do that for the first season. And I did it. I managed to only wear one thing for every episode.
Mission accomplished.
So I kind of stopped doing that, but I think that I'm still on that trend, but I'm not sure if I've worn this shirt before.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a fun thing. I've let go of trying to wear different outfits all the time and kind of just whatever. But
well, you're beautiful no matter what outfit you're wearing.
And see, now Allison knows that flattery will get her everywhere with me.
That's the way that should work.
She knows how I operate. But yes. But so I'm just doing very lovely this morning. We've had some really serious episodes recently.
Yeah.
And there's still lots of stuff and lots of things going on with these letters.
Yeah, they're very present in our minds, and there's going to be references back to the last couple of episodes. There's going to be a reference today. We're going to hear a continuation of another aspect of the story back from episode 45. We're in the immediate aftermath, still here with this episode of Sweetie learning that her older brother Bob, has passed away tragically in a plane crash, one of the Navy planes that went down just southeast of Albuquerque. And she's still processing this, and she's still wondering what's going on. There's going to be an element of that story in today's episode from another sort of a different place. And everybody will know when we get there, so we're not going to get into that further at this moment. But we should also mention that we were going through the text, and we noticed that we needed to rewind the clock just a little bit. So in the last episode, the last letter we heard was from May 1st. We actually have a letter from April 24th. It's in the same exact vein. So we're actually going to be starting today with that letter about a week before the one that just concluded episode 46. So if you listen to episode 46, just rewind about a week. Sweetie's in the same place.
Yeah.
She's in the same place mentally with everything. She does not want to be at Collingdale, and she does not want to be with her mother-in-law and her sister-in-law. It's going to keep going for a bit here, but we continuously pose this question at this point in the storyline, which is, when does she get away from 936 Springfield Road? Mm-hmm. And we're going to see if we get a little closer to that answer today. Today we have 4 letters from Sweetie. There's going to be a lot of things that she writes here. And also for those listening in, if you're into pediatrics and the history of pediatrics, get ready, because there comes a lot of information of how parents took care of their kids back then in the 40s, how the boomers were taken care of by their parents, what they were being given for all that ailed them. You have your, and then I see this cat in the background attempting to climb a closet. Okay. You have your coffee, Jamie?
I have my coffee. I'm ready.
We're all ready to go. For everybody that's listening, thank you for listening to the Love Sweetie podcast. If you could, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. If you're listening on the audio-only channels, please leave a review if you would. We'd appreciate that on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on the other channels, audio only, that you may be listening in on. And then if you would like to check out our website, we encourage you to do so. Please go to www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. There are new photos going into those photo galleries, especially now that we are in 1946 and we're seeing the photos that were taken on the East Coast. But heading into April 24th of 1946, here's the first of 4 letters for today. 936 Springfield Road. Your letter came this afternoon, and we were glad to hear from you. You're having quite a visit there, Jean. I hope you will be able to come back when I come this fall. I believe you wrote that Frank hoped to be home in August or September. If we know far enough in advance, we'll try to make it at the same time, or if you'd rather, we'll wait and come at another time. I'm planning pretty far in advance, I know, but I guess you've already guessed that I'm a little homesick. If we don't hurry up and get that house, I may have to come back now. We still haven't heard for sure about the house. We expected to hear on the 20th, and now it's just one of those cases where we sweat it out. The woman in Lansdowne called and said we'd have to take the bedroom furniture out of their house because the furniture store has to have the space that their furniture now occupies. This place is already stacked so deep we can hardly wade through, so we just have to get out. Since I wrote you, we've bought a pair of really lovely drum end tables, the pair for $5. And did I tell you that we bought some rugs too, second-hand, but there's not a worn spot on them. A grayish tan Wilton, 9 by 12 for $20. 2 Dubinet broadloom runners. One is 27-inch by 9 feet, the other 27-inch by 12 feet, $2 apiece. We're going to use part of one in the hallway and make small throw rugs to use in the bedroom, and we got a 4 by 8 Axminster for $8. They had to go to be cleaned, for she, the woman who sold them to us, had an Eskimo dog, and they were just filthy. The man who took them to clean them said the 9 by 12 was easily worth $50. I've started tatting again. The idea is to make a couple of doilies for these new tables. I'm doing quite well, and now I'm playing with the idea of selling tatting through the Women's Exchange in Philadelphia. What do you say about that? If we get the house, I might not have time to do it. But they say that prices for tatting are very high, and I might be able to put away a little nest egg. The house will be 15 minutes via the new industrial highway from the Navy Yard. There are men right there in the settlement who drive, and no doubt Lou could find steady transportation that way. We have a 45-minute ride from here, and so often the buses and streetcars get tied up along the way. Lou is still waiting to hear from the Veterans Administration that his request for on-the-job training has been approved. They are still trying to change his rate, so things are temporarily at a standstill. They are working on the new radio-controlled plane. It is still in the experimental stages, so there is little I can say about that.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So she's getting her deals. They're still finding, hunting for those deals, and they got a great one on the rug. It's funny because we purchased rugs for our house, and I spent about $20, but it's like a cheap rug.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good quality thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny that the rug was about the same price. $20 back then, though, Allison.
Yeah. It went a lot further back then than it does today, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And then I also like in here, she started tatting again. So remember, she learned to tat in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Yes.
So she's carried on this skill, and she does pretty well with this, making doilies and things. For those that might not have heard those episodes from Kansas, because I don't think tatting's done that much today. It's not as well known, except to like people really into sewing and knitting in those crafting communities. Tatting is like making lace. If you think of it as like a very fine crochet, right? So think of things like doilies, a lot of intricate needlework. There is like a tatting needle. It's very distinct. I won't bring it up on the screen now, but if you're into that sort of thing, you haven't heard of tatting, I encourage you to go look up the skill of tatting. And what she's basically saying here, of course, is if she has time, she could put her wares on the craft market. So Sweetie today would totally be going on Etsy, right? And making like lace doilies for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But then there was something called the Women's Exchange where she could sell her wares and she could try to put some money aside. So we'll see if it gets to that. But she does have plans for doing some more tatting. And then we get this update on Lou and the location to the Navy Yard. Now, this is near Philadelphia. This is the Philadelphia Navy Yard. And I like how we hear about transportation because we have to remind ourselves at this moment, Lou and Sweetie do not have a car. This is going to be really important, of course, because they're living in the suburbs, essentially. Now, Lou's sister, Elizabeth, or her nickname is Dit, she has a car. They're going to be able to borrow that car every now and then, but they don't have steady transportation. So the idea that they want to move into like this area where kind of all the Navy guys are going to, because there's probably some carpooling and things like that. That would be ideal. We are far from the days where Mr. Corey just takes Sweetie to the base at Atoma every day for free.
Oh, we are so far from those days, Allison. Right? I can't believe you just brought that up.
Right? That made me think of it. Like she had
I forgot really about that. Yeah, so she used to just ride with Mr. Corey, and like he had a car.
Come back for lunch, have a nice lunch, go back to the base with Mr. Corey, because that was about 15 minutes away, the Ottumwa base, right? That was outside of the city of Ottumwa, and then they would come back, and then there would be like a little bus, and This is Philadelphia. This is a different story entirely. So he's hoping to be able to take advantage of some carpooling. But it's very important to note at this point that they do not have a car for themselves yet.
Louis is much improved. I believe he's well now. There's no runny nose, and while he does still cough a little, it isn't a deep cough, as it was. His disposition has improved, but he's going to bed, and sleeping the night through is going to have to be changed. That's bad, but I can't let him cry here. He hasn't cut any more teeth. He has just the 2. I've started giving him Zwieback to chew. I never go away and leave him when he has it. He likes it, and it keeps him occupied for many busy minutes. He chews on one side or one end. All the time he's saying, hum. Then he carefully turns it completely around to hum and chew the other end. He does get hunks into his mouth, hates like sin to have me go in and fish it out, so he bites me while I'm trying to get my fingers and the hunk out, and I do mean bite. I've got the teeth marks to prove it. He doesn't play alone very long. Must have somebody near. Holds out 2 index fingers, and he can pull himself to his feet from a flat on the back position. He's eating many different things now, vegetables, fruit, etc., but remains constipated. I've been putting a little over a half teaspoon of milk of magnesia in his last bottle at night, and it has helped, but there is always a hard plug, and then it is much looser. Can I do anything more to help him? For the last 2 or 3 days he has looked so longingly at the oranges that I just gave in, squeezed and strained it, put a little water in it, 2½ ounces of juice, and 1 ounce water, and he was just as pleased as Punch. He surely is a sun worshipper. He wants to go outdoors as soon as he's dressed, and once he's outside, he'd be pleased to have his meals brought out, so he wouldn't have to come indoors. He does need a playpen just most terribly. He cries for me sometimes when Lou's mother has him, which irks her some. I took him up to a little store and weighed him on their meat scales. He weighs 20½ which isn't as much as I had expected, yet he's gained 1 pound and 2 ounces since I was home. We took a roll of snapshots with a poor camera in poor light, so we'll just hope, but we'll send you some anyway. He has on the bill cap that Mama doesn't like, but he had to have something on his head.
All right, so
That's so funny.
isn't that great? Yeah.
I love how she's like, I know Mama doesn't like it,
Mm-hmm.
but I did it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, well. This image of her weighing the kid on the meat scales feels so classic to me, which is like, well, I have to find out how much he weighs. I don't have a scale at home. So while we're at the store, he's like 20 pounds. There's like a frozen turkey, maybe, well, probably not frozen those days, like a ham. Oh, and then we'll just set the kid on the scale and be like, he's gained a pound.
That's funny. I bet some people, like some of the grocers, like got a good laugh out of that.
I'm sure there were a lot of parents doing it at the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, who were just like, it was this adorable little moment of like, okay, let's just put the kid on the scales and see how it's going. Is there something with kids not supposed to be drinking like orange juice? Is there something about citric acid in the first year? I don't know if maybe it's just a
yeah,
thing.
like because he's 8 months old about this time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even give but this is like how nowadays I didn't really oranges. Like I'd be like,
Yeah.
here, I wouldn't have any problem with it. He loved it.
Maybe it was a thing back then. They said don't give like citrus to your kids, and she finally just gave in because she seems to make a big deal of it. Like, I gave in to give him that. Yeah. And then he wants to be outside. This is the same to today. He's always wanted to be outside.
Is it today? Like today, he always wants to be outside?
He loves the natural world, for sure. And you know what? A certain grandfather likes to go putter in the natural world, so this may be genetic. This love of the sun and wanting to go outdoors.
I don't think that this was a problem. I think that to give him that kind of stuff, I don't think it was a problem. I mean,
yeah.
The kid, like you want to get him to be a little bit older. I'm actually kind of forget a little bit now that I think about it, because I'm at a different place. But yeah, I like to, like, there's this little, did you see this line where she says, he cries for me sometimes when Lou's mother has him and it irks her.
Yeah. Like, oh, something start early. Yes. So there it is. Oh, and I will add this, and let's just say this disclaimer runs for the entirety of this episode, so I don't have to stop all the time with it. These are pediatric solutions and sometimes medications and things being mentioned from the 1940s. Please consult your doctor and do not try things at home based on Sweetie's advice, even if she probably got it from her own father, the doctor out in Iowa at the time. Things stay in the 1940s. Consult your doctor before doing anything medical based on what you're hearing people did 80 years ago. And I emphasize 80 years ago. So I will keep voicing that in every episode as medical things come up, and they're going to come up a lot with the kids here. These things are of their time. So ask your doctor before doing anything or repeating some of Sweetie's processes here with how she's taking care of her little baby. And we'll continue from there.
We've been having some lovely weather, bright warm sun, but with a little too much wind to suit me. Reminded me a little of Kansas for a day or two. There's been 1 or 2 days of rain or drizzle since I've been here, but several cloudy and overcast days that promote a feeling of gloom. We're forecast for rain, but it doesn't look much like it now. The ground is hard and dry, and garden planting is being delayed in hopes of rain. The trees are all out, cherries and apple are blooming profusely. The grass is green and very pretty. There are 2 very pretty things here that I'd never seen out there. One is the magnolia tree. Several kinds, but the prettiest are the white and pink and the all white. The trees will just be filled with blossoms so that no limbs are visible, just a huge mass of blossoms and the tree trunk. The other is an azalea bush, any color, but they are usually a bright red or else a purplish pink. They grow as big as a big hedge bush and are like umbrellas, blossoms all over. Some people make hedges of them, and when they once bloom, they are truly beautiful, but I don't believe they bloom for more than a month.
Oh, and I love this.
And like at the time of this recording, it's almost spring.
Yep.
And I am so ready for it.
Yep.
I'm ready for spring. And like, so when I was reading this letter, it just, I had that feeling of like things starting to come. And that's the first thing that comes is the magnolia trees and the azaleas. And it's true, they don't bloom for very long, but the magnolia trees are so gorgeous. Oh, and I love that that's jumped out to her. And the azaleas too. I have not really seen azaleas as so much in Ohio, but out here, when we bought a house, when my husband and I bought a house out in Pennsylvania, we had a bunch of azalea bushes that were already established. So we were able, and they do come out about that time, and they're beautiful. But then when they all die, it makes such a big mess.
Yeah,
because all that stuff falls down. But I love that she highlights these things for her dad.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This letter's, I was going to say the same thing. This letter's going to her dad, right? And what's dad doing at the same time? He's talking about planting trees on the property because he just bought a farm. And I love that she brings this up because she knows she's trying to describe. Now, he has encyclopedias and things. He's probably going to go looking up the magnolia tree. He's going to go looking up the azalea because he wants to see the difference. And she's calling out. I love that we get this very definitive. This is not in Iowa. This is not in the Midwest. Today, I'm not really too sure because basically you can have anything pretty much anywhere. But back in like the 40s, when you're just looking at sort of the natural difference between the lands, to say, oh, here in southeastern Pennsylvania, we have these 2 trees I've never really seen before. And she's writing this back to her father. You know, Chester's going to go back to his encyclopedia. I can't see him attempting to grow these things. But at the same time, like you get the comparison of what it's like in the Midwest. And it never really occurred to me like, oh, they don't have magnolia trees out there.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of take them for granted, the azalea bushes and things out here. And then she's talking about how pretty they are, especially the azalea. The azalea is going to come up in a much, much later piece of content as a gift. But that's a long way off. But she really likes azaleas. We can leave it at that. And she's talking about the cherries and the apples. You know, she loves the blooming of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a gorgeous state.
It is a beautiful, beautiful state.
I was surprised to hear that Uncle Cyril had called you, but no doubt it was nice to hear from him. Are you worried about Aunt Nellie, Daddy? Is there much chance that you'll make a trip out there? I'd be tempted to come that far and meet you. I will try to write Uncle Cyril soon, but I've yet to write to Frank and Maida. I did write to Florence the other day. I'd like to hear from her, but I know how hard it is for her to write. You certainly are doing a lot of work out at the place. I know how hard you go at it. I hope you'll not overdo a good thing, though, for I've seen how very tired you do get. From what Jean writes, you're going at it tooth and toenail. Have you gotten quite friendly with Edna Williams? How come she makes donuts? My mom had quite a hand at donut batter. Now how come? Too tired, I'll bet. Where for goodness sake did Focals go? We are all well, though I do get pretty disheartened at times over this situation. And I hope you are taking good care of yourselves. Daddy, make time for Mama's teeth to be taken care of, especially if you are going to Indiana, for it would be hard to enjoy fried chicken Indiana style with no teeth. I love each one of you very much. Yours, Sweetie, Lou, and White Boy. P.S. This came Saturday morning. My shoes came yesterday, and a pair of nylons. Cost of delivery, $1.43.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of funny those letters that we get where she's obviously just answering one of the letters
She's answering
we
questions.
haven't seen.
Yeah.
Gives us a little bit of stuff to think about, but you know what I
there's
mean?
these references. We don't know.
Yeah.
What's being talked about. But we get a little mention of the family here. And this is a nice little reminder to say that Chester was originally from Indiana. So his side of the family, his siblings, there's a good portion of them in Indiana right now. So when he's talking about Uncle Cyril, that's Chester's brother, and then you get the mention of Aunt Nellie, actually. And then we hear about potentially a trip going on. I don't know what Indiana fried chicken tastes like, but now I'm curious. So maybe if anybody's listening from Indiana, let us know if there's something distinct about fried chicken in Indiana. Because usually I hear about different styles, but I don't know. Maybe someone will put that in the comments. Is there a difference? If there's a difference, what is the difference? Or was there only a difference in the 40s? Maybe there's something lost to time here. There's something special that we just don't do anymore. But that's it for that letter from April. They're still looking for the house. We get some updates, some comparisons. And then we move into the end of May. Now we have 2 letters from May 27th. One is to her parents and one is to Jean. So we'll start and continue with the one to her parents first.
936 Springfield Road, Collingdale, Pennsylvania, May 27th, 1946. Dear Mama and Daddy, I guess Sister and the kids have all gone home now. I meant to write to Sister while she was still there, but it is next to impossible to write at all. I hope it will be better now. We have a couple good prospects for an apartment or a house, and if one of them comes through, my visit with you will be postponed until September, as originally planned. Living here is not pleasant. I've despaired of being able to stick it out at all, but I guess in all fairness to Lou and to little Louis, I must wait until we can live alone and see if our difficulties do clear up. I was just ready to turn tail and run, but I've decided I'd better try a little longer before I decide definitely. It is quite depressing to live under these conditions, and so it has been hard to write at all. I believe I'll have to plan on the September trip, unless something turns up unexpectedly.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we're fast forwarding a month from the previous letter.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like things are getting worse.
And she's still in Collinsdale.
Mm-hmm.
Which, oh man, this is rough. And she came out the gate.
Yeah.
With this. So she's definitely having a problem. Oh man. So, and it looks like there was at one point in time she was thinking of just giving up.
Yep. I'm done. I've had enough. The tone of these letters, she just wants to get out of Collingdale. And this has been going on now since she arrived.
Mm-hmm. When did she arrive, Allison? Was that in March?
It was March 26th, or March 27th, about that time that she took the plane from Chicago.
Okay.
She's only been there for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten to this point. Mm-hmm. And you're right. She started the letter right in on it. I gotta get out of here. And she's writing it to her parents. This isn't just a letter to her sister where she's griping. She's writing to her parents. I gotta get out of here. This is awful. I cannot stand it. But she leaves this one line there, which I think is the most important. In fairness to Lou and to little Louis, she just keeps hanging on for her husband and her kid. And other than that, if they weren't in the picture, or perhaps even if it was only Lou, she would have already been back on a train or on a plane, back to Des Moines, back to Jean, back to Lacona, and that would be that. But she's waiting it out, and they're hoping hoping for this house or apartment to come through. Let's see if it does.
Here's some recent pictures of Lewis that will show you how and where his 22 pounds are distributed. He is wearing the little blue overalls, legs hemmed up, and white shirt that Jean got him before he was born. There are 2 of him with Lou's mother, 2 on the red rocking horse that Lou made while he was still in the Navy stationed at Atlantic City. 1 in his $10 buggy that he pulled himself up and fell out over the foot onto the living room floor. Doesn't the one of him standing make him look like a big boy? I love the one of me holding him, for it looks like my own dad in one of his famous grimaces. We're having more made, so you can keep the set. Show them around. We'll try to have more made to distribute. He still has colic or stomachache of some kind. Last night I had to get up and tootle-toot to lull him and the pain back to sleep. He still sleeps on my stomach on occasions, as he did when he was such a little boy. I've put him on 4 8-ounce bottles of plain homogenized milk, but he wakes up in the night and demands a bottle, so he just gets water. He seemingly has a stomachache, and without a nightly teaspoon or milk of magnesia, he'd never have a BM. He sure is sweet, looks more and more like Lou, I guess, though I do see a little Chris on occasion, and quite often I see one of Daddy's faces, like the picture.
So they have some pictures. They've been taking some pictures of him, trying to keep everybody up to date on his growth and his progress.
Now, we did notice, so if we're doing the math here, because she's very precise about the weight. In the last letter, he was 20 pounds. So now he's 22 pounds, which means, she put him back on that meat scale at the groceries.
Oh, she did.
I was like, nope, I'm going to keep checking on the kids. So sometime in the last month of letters, she's definitely stopping by the grocery store a number of times for that. Yeah, but again, some issues in the middle of the night, the use of milk and magnesia. I don't know if that's a thing today. I mean, I've always heard of milk and magnesia, so it's still around. But again, ask your doctor, ask your doctor. But yeah.
I am also enclosing a picture of a wave. She is Virginia Ann Bechtel, 24, who was the 3rd member of the crew on Bob's plane. Her folks live in Philadelphia proper. I got her name and address from the local news article, called her parents, and they came out here to see me. They were seemingly well-to-do, middle-aged people accompanied by an army captain's son-in-law. They knew absolutely nothing about it. The sealed casket was accompanied by a wave friend of Virginia's, who said she had talked to a lieutenant on the investigation board. He said this: they were in a valley between 2 fairly high mountains, possibly struck an air pocket, and were pulled into a dive. When they tried to pull out, the elevators just refused to work, and there was nothing to do but crash. You wrote of the altitude as 7,500, so I guess this story is false, but seemed a logical story to tell to grief-stricken parents. They asked me to keep in touch with them, and they in turn will call me, should they hear any more about it. If you do not want the picture, return it to me, and I'll keep it. However, if you do want it, you may have it. She was scheduled for discharge the 1st of this month, and had already requested that she be transferred to ground duty, since she was getting a little squeamish about flying, as her mother said.
Yeah, we get this moment of this letter. This seems to all be about seeking answers. So the wave, for the people that are unfamiliar with the term, maybe didn't hear parts of the first season, the waves were the women's reserves in the Navy. So it's a very, very much in use term during World War II. Great word for the Navy, right? With the water, idea there. But she's one of the 11 on board the plane, is Virginia Ann Bechtel. And her parents, having been in Pennsylvania, Sweetie reads about this or hears about this from the papers about the crash, manages to locate the parents, and they manage to meet up and they have a conversation. Because in this time period, it's tough to get information. And what seems to be going on here is whatever they were told about what happened seems to be different from what Sweetie and the family has been told about what happened. She doesn't get into the details, there's no sort of checking the story here. But there's a lot of people in Sweetie's life who work around planes. And so something she says about the altitude at 7,500, her idea is whatever they were told seems to be incorrect about whatever happened. It's just really sad to hear about the wave, about Virginia there, because she makes that very haunting note at the end. Just a sad moment. But I do think that it was probably helpful at the time in her grieving process and their grieving process as the family of the wave for two people that were both affected by the crash, who in regular life would probably never know each other at all or would never cross paths, to come together at least and kind of have that evening of mourning that they have here.
Well, that is such an excellent point, Allison,
Mhm.
because they truly understand the situation. Their involvement in the situation is very similar.
Yeah.
And so they're able to, like, I'm sure that this was especially for her parents, like, get a little bit more empathy, like be able to work, because like you said, they're trying
Right.
to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
And when it was just like, oh, is the only way they can get any closure,
Yeah.
is by trying to figure out what happened, and to know that you're not going to know exactly what happened, and if it could have been prevented, and if this happened, because they didn't want to lose their child.
Yeah.
And Sweetie didn't want to lose her brother. And the fact of the matter is that they did. And you want it to not be something, you want some kind of answers, because that's really the only thing that you have left.
Yeah. And you mentioned the empathy here. Sweetie feels very isolated out in Pennsylvania. She's not able to just talk to Jean or talk to her parents. So there's something, I think, probably that was healing about this moment, in that she didn't feel so alone, because she was able to talk to also another family that had lost, in the same incident that had occurred.
This probably helped her. I mean, I can't imagine it didn't, but she did go, well, she went searching for it. And
she went looking.
Again, but it's like it's the whole process of grief. This is another step in that, helping to get through and understand, so that she can move on.
Yeah.
I had a letter from Jean today. She told about her nice welcome into Lakeshore Tire and Rubber Company, and she sounded very pleased with it. I must write to congratulate her, and also to Sister, since I haven't even said hello to little M. I owe so darn many letters, and it has just been impossible to write. Right now, while Louis is asleep, I'd better hurry on to Jean and Sister, and then try Frank and Maida, too. No doubt you've done lots of work out at Orchard Heaven since Sister's tribe has gone home. I think about it in you daily, and how I do wish I could have just a glimpse of you. It seems so long ago that I saw you and talked to you, and Philadelphia seems halfway around the world. Do take good care of youses. I love you both very, very much. Sweetie.
Oh my God, I'm so sad right now.
Yeah. Orchard Heaven.
Orchard Heaven.
She wants to be out at the farm with Chester, making his
puttering
orchard.
Place.
He's out puttering. She'd like to go putter with Dad.
He's out of puttering.
He's out of puttering.
I know, just like when you've added that A on the beginning of it, that's pretty funny.
I'm gonna have a song written about that. Chester out of puttering.
Great. Chester, he went out of puttering. He didn't come back till the sun gone down. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's perfect. That's exactly it.
I don't know that.
Oh man.
Anyway.
But then we get another piece of information here. Little M.
Little M.
Not MA. That's not MA. Sisters had a third child. Yay. So we have Chris, MA, and then we'll just refer to little M. Now I'm specifically only going to use the word M here because down the line there's going to be a little M, like literally. So, but M, the third kid. And she's like, she's basically getting the sense I'm missing out, I haven't had a chance to be around family to see this, but she's acknowledging that. And these letters are being passed around, especially this one in particular. I feel that Chester would have sent on to other family members because it has the information about the wave. And the other family members, no doubt, would kind of want to hear some of that information and all the updates about Louis, and how all that is.
Oh, yeah. They all want to know how Sweetie's little boy is doing and stuff, too. But I want to remind, she didn't want to go. I really do feel, and it might be a subconscious thing, that she's looking for reasons. to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And she still
Yeah.
refers to Iowa as home.
Yeah.
So she isn't going to be happy there because
Mhm.
she doesn't want to be there. And so if there's something that she can find that she's like, oh, yep, that's it. That's the
That's the
line I
reason.
needed to cross,
That's
and
the
now I
deal
can go.
breaker.
So
Mhm.
I think a lot of this is self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then to tell so this was our third letter today, correct?
This was the second.
This was the
This was
second. Oh man, we have two more.
Because we have like part 2 of May 27th. We get the letter to Jean, where the tone
Oh,
shift
we need to
happens.
go on to the letter that to Jean now.
Yep.
Oh
And
yeah.
here's the continuation where she keeps writing to her sister.
"936 Springfield Road, Collingdale, Pennsylvania, May 27th, 1946. Dear Jean, your letter came today, and I was most awfully very glad to get it. I'd begun to think I was being ostracized, and even my own sister wouldn't write. I've neglected everybody. I've never even written to say hello to little M. What few friends I have will soon be entirely past tense. What few friends I had. I've been so depressed and blue about living here that I just couldn't sit down to write any woes to somebody else. Our house fell through, and so has everything else that even seemed possible. Lou and I are at swords' points constantly, and it is quite an effort to be even civil to the rest. I'm treated as though I were not yet quite 13. The fact that I had a baby is of no consequence whatsoever, for I certainly know nothing about taking care of him. If he ever grows up, it will be in spite of me, not because of me. I have been on the verge of leaving for the past few days, but with prospects of an apartment and a house, I must wait a little longer. If having a place of our own does not solve our difficulties, then I might just as well give up the ghost. This is an uncensored letter, so please do not make mention of it at all. I'm sure pleased for you that you're so happy at Lakeshore Tire and Rubber. The welcome letter was very nice, and I can imagine how it made you feel to receive it. I hope you do continue to feel so enthusiastic about it, for it will keep a job from becoming drudgery. You say you're gaining in weight. Ho-hum, you should see me. And me with no bunny? The small amount that Daddy gave me was included in the box you packed and sent insured. The colic medicine broke. The aspirin and Benzedrine was so mixed up with powdered glass that it had to be thrown out. Please, and how about some vitamins for Lou? He only weighs 128. And me? Yuck.
Mm-hmm.
Poor thing.
Yeah. So she's gone from writing her one letter to the parents, and she's continued right in now to
Mhm.
Jean's letter that she's writing, which is even more depressing. You know,
Well,
if that
she's
was
definitely
possible.
not holding back. Like
No.
she's definitely like, oh, I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
unload. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then the medicine. So we get the mention here, the first mention of Lakeshore, and Jean's going to be at Lakeshore for a bit. So Jean's an RN for the people that might be new to the podcast. And this seems to be something to do with industrial, but even they had need of nurses at the time to be on board the staff. So they're welcoming her in. And so she's writing there. Jean does really well in her medical career throughout the entirety of these letters. She was very, very good at what she did. But we do get to see like how she was at the hospital previously. She was working on the wards. She's having like night shifts. She's working all the time. Now she's switching to go more into private industry in her nursing role. So she switched. That's what that's all in reference to. And then we get the whole part about the medicine being shipped back and forth. So she's asking Jean, in her capacity as an RN, like if the medicine broke from her dad, she has a secondary source of getting medicine. So she's asking for Jean to send over some supplies as well. Where those supplies are coming from, maybe courtesy of the unknowing donations of Lakeshore, we're not really sure where she's getting those from. But Jean has access, of course, to medicine. It's just too bad some of it broke on the way.
Lewis is just fine. He tips the beam at 22 pounds now, well distributed and equally carried. We bought a nice high chair and a nice playpen, of which he's not too fond. He's beginning to pull himself up onto his feet. I found that out the hard way, for I picked him up off the floor where he'd stood up in the buggy and toppled out over the end. We've taken some pictures. I sent a set to the folks while we're waiting for more to be made. Notice he's wearing the blue overalls, legs hemmed up, and white shirt you bought before he was born. The rocking horse Lou made while he was still in the Navy stationed at Atlantic City is in a couple pieces. We also have another roll being developed, so there will be a deluge of pictures soon. He's on homogenized milk now, 4 8-ounce bottles a day. He wakes up in the night, though, so I have to give him water then. I need a summertime snuggle ducky for this flannel one, so just 2, even now. If one of these 2 places do come through, I'm going to buy a sewing machine the very first thing. We often walk to meet Lou in the evening. Louis recognizes him about a half block away and starts to kick and wiggle and babble at him. When he's tired, he's pretty much of a mama's boy and a crybaby. He says, "Da, da, da, da," but I haven't made up my mind whether he does or doesn't know what he's saying. He looks like Lou, but there are times when he sure looks like Chris, and times when he sure looks like Daddy. He has 3 teeth with a 4th just ready to erupt. They change his appearance lots. Makes him look older. I know there's more space to write, but it is time for Lou to walk in the door. This letter must be sealed, or he'll read it. So I'll just have to stop. I'll try to do better in writing, but sometimes it's so terribly hard to write. I do love your letter, though, just as we do, all of us. Love you, sweetie, Lou, Louis.
Oh, goodness. Goodness.
A lot going on there. I think, especially at the end, and she made reference to this, and I hadn't called it out at the time because I knew it was coming up at the end. She writes earlier in the letter, "This is an uncensored letter, so do not make mention of it at all." And then she says, "I have to seal this before he comes home." Because I guess Lou was in the habit of reading what she was writing and sending out. She doesn't say this in her parents' letter. She gives the update there. The letter to Jean is sealed. So now she's holding things back. It's gotten to that point from sharing her thoughts and her emotions with her husband. It's only a few times that I've actually seen this in the letters. We had this early on. I think it was episode 2, all the way back. The burn after reading letter from college. And sweetie, obviously Gina did not burn the letter.
Oh,
but
no.
Here's another one, the thoughts of how she really feels at the time. But we do have some photos here. I did want to pause for a moment because she's talking about him falling out of the buggy. And wouldn't you know, we do have a photo of little Louis standing in this buggy. Now, maybe this was taken right before he fell out of it. Not really sure. He doesn't look too upset, but I'll bring that up on the screen so we can see. And if you're thinking about what a buggy looks like today, or like a little wagon, this looks a little different, I think, than what people might be expected to see. But yeah, here's the picture of little Lou in this buggy. Doesn't look particularly comfortable. They've clearly draped a blanket over the back just for the sake of the picture. We've got the little handles, right? And then this metal.
So she'll sit him in that. I was wondering, like she said that he noticed he would recognize Lou. I think it's so sweet that she walks like down to go see him. Like they meet each other. That's nice. She's probably like, oh, an opportunity to get out of the house.
Yep.
But I was wondering like how that worked out, like how he would be able to see. Because when I thought of a stroller,
right,
like my kids had like, and it was facing me. You know what I'm saying? So I'd be like looking at them, but so he could see and he could like.
Yeah, this is more like a little wagon.
And stuff and like, kick and be like, da, da, da. Yeah.
So there's the imagery. So we do have Lou in there. And then we have another picture from this set. Now, there are a number of photos that are in the series. And we get this lovely, lovely photo, which is, I think, one of the best photos I've ever seen of just the 3 of them together. So this is what's keeping her in Collingdale. This is what's, we were talking about, you know, she needs to be fair to Lou and to Louis. So this is from that moment. And I love that we can date this photo because of the buggy photo, that we can see that this has to be from the spring of 46. And she's talking about taking pictures. So I have to imagine this is the set that she's talking about. So she's just going to keep holding on.
He's so adorable. Look at that face. I really actually just adore this picture. It's the candidness, you know, it's like, it's the casual, like they're sitting together. It's, you know, and I'm sorry, Lou was a handsome guy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I love the hair, just like
Oh, I love it.
not perfectly stylized hair, but somehow like effortlessly styled. That's not fair. People that have that ability, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's so effortless, you know? Yeah, she's gonna
That
keep
is a
hanging around as
beautiful
long as she
picture.
can.
This is
Mhm.
beautiful. Yeah, she's hanging on, and it's tough. And
Yeah.
again, I'm really glad that we were able to see some of the pictures that, she's making reference to.
Yeah. Yeah, that they have survived at the time.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have one more letter here for today. And this is from Memorial Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we're going to notice something. I'll make sure I pause this really early because I know Jamie wants to talk about something at the beginning of this letter.
Yes.
936 Springfield Road, Collingdale, Pennsylvania, May 31st, 1946. Dear Jean, yesterday, Memorial Day, nobody worked. Lou and Elizabeth had holidays from work. Joe and Marguerite came from New York, and with the house full of people, it was nearly impossible to do anything, let alone write to you as I had planned. Joe and Marguerite are here for the weekend until Sunday night. Elizabeth has gone back to work today, but Lou doesn't have to go back to work until Monday morning. That makes a nice long weekend, doesn't it? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If we had the address of the old Demery homestead, I think I would have tried to talk Lou into making a trip up there in New Jersey. If you have the Demery book yet, would you please look up the name of that place and write and tell me where it is? I've often thought of it. We are quite close to New Jersey. I don't think it would be such a long trip, and I think that Daddy would enjoy our looking it up and writing him about it. I would like to have the address, too, of Judge Demarest. I think you'll be able to find that in the Demery book, too. I'm not quite sure what good all these addresses will do me, since I hardly get my own family written to.
All right, we'll pause right here before we get a little further. So, Jamie, you were really excited to talk about one thing that happens in this letter that's so different from the two letters that preceded it.
This one's typed.
It's typed.
It's a typed letter,
Mm-hmm.
which means she's gotten a typewriter. And I don't know if you guys have picked up, but Allison has been hinting. She's like, wait until Sweetie gets the typewriter.
Yeah.
And you can see even now, like, and Allison does an incredible job of trying to maintain any of the inconsistencies or misspellings or like the way that things are written. So she definitely tries to, like, when she types out the letters, to stay true to the letter.
Yeah, if there's a typo, it's from Sweetie, just to be clear.
Right. If there's a typo, and if two words are together, like sometimes she'll run her words together, won't be a space. It's because it's intentional. Yeah. That's like she wants to be, and I love that. So you can see how it's just nice, consistent. She's able to like put her thoughts down faster. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what I've personally been waiting for.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the descriptions just get bigger and bigger. And on this page, we also get some fun descriptions talking about the old Demery homestead. So this is still there to this day. The Demarest family is very well known. I think there's even a school district named after it in northern New Jersey. But the judge, she mentions Judge Demarest. And for anybody that might be listening that is related to the Demery family, I know there's family members that listen, but there's people also distantly related. This is now going back from Sweetie's day. I would say like about 6 or 7 generations from Sweetie. I know it's about 7 or 8 generations from me. These are the initial immigrants. So in one of the episodes earlier, and you can see some of the images on the website of the artifacts from the family, the Demarest family, which becomes Demery over the course of time, as many names do evolve, is coming from France in the 1600s. It had been a Huguenot family, so they were religiously persecuted. The Huguenots were persecuted. And they immigrate into the United States in the 1600s, into New Jersey, into like sort of like the central or northern portion of New Jersey. And one of the Demarests does very well. And he becomes Judge David Demarest. I know his name right off the top of my head because the Demarys know the stuff about the judge. And the family just manages, actually, over time to drift towards the Midwest. And that's how we find our way into Indiana. There's a lot of Demarys out in Indiana to this day of other family lines. And then, of course, Chester kind of goes the farthest. He goes to Iowa. But it comes in through Jersey. So this is going to intrigue Chester to no end, that she has easy access to get to the original family home from the original immigrants in the 1600s. But that's how far back that family goes. Judge Deverest was very, very well known. But to Chester, I mean, this is what he wants to know about. Yep. And they're talking about the books. And books from this time period, they're called genealogies. Sweetie does get her hands on the books. There are officially published history of the Demery families where they would track all the family lines. We do have them in the family collection. So she's talking about the books, and the books are very much a thing for this family. And they're in 2 volumes now, actually, the Demery books. There's a lot of Demerys out there, so maybe more Demerys than I know are listening to this. So there you go, if you're waiting to hear about the judge. But Memorial Day weekend, yeah, looking back on your past, go visit the judge's home. Or thinking about it, at least. She's thinking about that Demery homestead.
I had a letter from Daddy this AM. He said you were very well pleased with your job, and along with the letter I last received from you, I judge that you are quite happy. I'm sincerely glad, and I hope nothing happens to disappoint you. The letter of welcome was really nice, and must have given you a good feeling of being liked and wanted. Daddy said that you had bought him 4 tires, and at a good substantial reduction. You always do nice things for other people, don't you?
And this is in reference, of course, to her job at Lakeshore. But, yeah.
Yeah, and when I read this, the tone that came out across for me was that she was just very agitated. I judge that you are quite happy. I'm sincerely glad, and I hope nothing happens to disappoint you.
Yeah.
And this is another reason why I'm excited for the typewriter, because she's able to like kind of get that stuff out. But when I read this, I was like, what's up with her? Like, I know she's upset, but this doesn't seem depressed. This more seems, forgive me, a little pissed off.
Yep. Yep. She's had it. She is past the point where she's had it. So I keep clinging to that photo of the happy, smiling family. But that's the other thing. Even though that photo is candid, it's not exactly showing at that exact same time that photo is being taken what's going on, only through the letters. Like, if this was Facebook, this is one thing that bothers me about social media, right? And it's always been the case with photos. Only the photos from like the 1800s, like the late 19th century, to me are genuine, because they took so long to take. You couldn't smile for, like, they took like 20 minutes to take a photo, however long it was. The photography experts, they could put it in the comments. But that's why a lot of people in the 19th century, they don't smile in photos, because you couldn't hold it for that long.
Can you imagine?
Now we take instant. So what's the first thing we do? Oh, say smile. Everybody smiles. And then that's the photo, because when everybody must be living such a happy life, and we scroll through social media all day and all we see are smiling photos, right? And we get an idea in our minds of what's going on with someone's life. From Sweetie, even from that candid photo, oh, she must have been happy, despite the sad news, the tragic news about her brother, so close to the timing of that photo where Lou's in the buggy, and then the ones we just looked at. But it's not at all the case. The letter is really telling us authentically what is going on. And it's like, what do we hear? The photo's worth 1,000 words. In this case, the 1,000 words is worth the 1,000 words. It's the only way to really know what was going on at the time frame. So photos can be incredibly deceiving as to what's actually going on. And just everybody, as you scroll through social media, I'm not saying don't trust that your friends are having a nice time if they're all smiles and happy, but still check in with your friends despite it, and stay in contact, because people are going through things. And, unfortunately, we find out too late a lot of cases all the time when stuff is going on, when we could have been there to help people. So, but yeah, I guess that's the messaging for the day, right? Yeah, be there for other people and don't assume things about what you're seeing. Yeah.
The little house that we hoped to get has been rented to somebody else. I guess that's what comes from relying too much on what you hope a friend can do. I have made application with the lady, though, and hope to hear from her fairly soon. We also hope to hear about a couple of small apartments, too. I can't seem to give up the idea of one of those small houses, though, but I guess if we do find anything, I'll take it and let the house go, if it would mean we could have a place by ourselves. I despair of ever finding anything that will be just what the doctor ordered and still be down in our rent bracket. I do think that there are a few more places to rent, and possibly this dearth of houses will soon be remedied, in part at least. Our furniture will be worthless if we have to keep it stored in that barn much longer. Storage rates are beyond all reason. That is one reason why we got such nice furniture so cheaply. People can't pay storage rates, and so they sold it rather than pay to have it stored. One woman stored her furniture, made several trips to look at it, see that it was being well cared for, and then found that they were charging her for each trip she made to look at it.
What a time period. Oh my goodness. Well, they didn't get the place, but
Yeah, they didn't get the place, so that's why she's in such a bad mood.
oh yeah. So, and then
Well,
I have to.
and then there's a bunch of people at the house too.
Mm-hmm.
And we know
Yeah.
that Marguerite and Joe are both very strong personalities.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I
Definitely.
can't imagine having
Oh,
everybody at home and having everybody at home to tell Sweetie how horrible of a job she's doing raising her
yeah.
son.
Yeah. And she's just thinking, give me a reason. Just give me a reason to get on that train to Des Moines. I'm out of here. She's going to keep holding on and keep holding on. And then there is like this side story that I kind of have in my head, which is like this real estate agent hearing from literally everybody how desperate they are in that post-war housing crisis. It's clearly a crisis because houses are just going off the market as soon as they're going on the market. And if you're the realtor that's going through that, well, you're getting a lot of big business at this time period. But at the same time, the stress level, because you're just trying to get everybody situated. So this has been going on for months now, and she needs to get out of Hollandale.
I guess the folks are missing Sister and the kids quite a bit. Mama wrote that little Em was a pretty little girl, with just a hint of colic, but the soothing syrup had fixed her up okay. I do wish I could have seen her when she was such a tiny little girl. Doesn't seem that Louis was ever very small, for he's such a big hulking thing now. But he sure is sweet. He is badly spoiled, of course. Why wouldn't he be, living in a house where he isn't allowed to cry at all? I'm sure I will have a hard time getting him straightened out if we don't soon have a place of our own where we can start a little training of all kinds. We are taking quite a few pictures of him. We have another roll to send to the folks. I'm hoping you'll get to see them and pick the ones you like the best, so we can have some extras made for you. I'm sending the sets to the folks, sort of like peace offerings, since I've been so negligent about writing to them. I had a letter from Mama this morning, too. She was feeling very blue, and I felt so sorry for her. I'm thoroughly ashamed for not writing better, and yet if I do, I merely heap my grief on them, too. I'm so homesick at times. I don't think I can ever wait until September to go home and see them. I know that Daddy is working hard at the farm, and he enjoys it, so that it will sort of help him some. But Mama, well, it isn't the same for her, and I certainly do wish I could just be within visiting distance. I can't think of you, Sister, and her kids, and Frank, and Maida, for if I do, I'm no good for anything else. I hate to think that. Florence will stay in Iowa City. I only hope we have not lost Florence, too. And if I can help prevent it by writing to her, then I certainly will make more of an effort to write. The children are Demarys, and if this baby is a boy, I know how much the folks will want to be near them. I hope she understands that, too.
Yeah.
So, Florence is having a baby.
Florence is having a baby. Florence has also left Kansas. So previously, what we'd known was Florence was in Kansas. Of course, Bob had been with the Olathe Squadron. So now she's in Iowa City, which is the old capital of Iowa before it became Des Moines. And she's closer, for sure, to Chester and to Laura and to the rest of the family. But there's a distance there. And Sweetie understands this, but she wants to make sure she doesn't lose contact with Florence, that the family doesn't lose touch, that there's not a drifting here that happens.
I'm sorry that Frank is sick. I'll try to send him a card today, and of course I'll have to draw a diagram to show him which way Broad Street runs. Lou said there were no little winding, curved, or cut-off streets in Philadelphia like there are in Des Moines. There are so darn many that they haven't been able to draw up a map of the city. I haven't been let out on my own to find out how to get around, so I may never know where I'm going or how to get there. But someday I hope to be able to find out just how to get around on my own. It certainly would be fun if you were here to go exploring with me and to giggle. I haven't giggled for so long. I don't think I know how anymore.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is just really, this letter is just really, the tone of it is so just dark.
Yeah. It's a very difficult spring across the board for the family. And then she's like, I haven't been let out on my own to find out how to get around. Sweetie's an independent woman, you know. I remember back to the episode, this is the biggest episode we have on YouTube, is episode 18, outside of the beginning episodes, which is when she goes to the shore patrol station and she's such a spitfire and they pick her up and there's the whole thing about the butt and then the stick of gum. If you missed all of this, that old Demery spirit, is clearly not here in this letter. And to get from the point of Atumwa where she's like, I'm going to go to war with all of the shore patrol on Lou's behalf, to get to the point where she's like, I'm not even let out on my own to get around in Philadelphia, is just the breaking point. And she says, she can't laugh anymore. She's done. So she needs her space, needs to get out of this situation soon here.
You know, and that begs the question. I wonder what Lou's doing.
Yeah.
Because he's been married to this woman. He knows her.
Oh, yeah.
I think he understands that, like, what she needs. And, like, this is not it.
Do you get a vacation at all this summer or fall? I know how you feel about spending as much time with the folks as you can. But do you think you could consider coming here to see us if we find a suitable place to live, to set up our spare bed, to entertain guests? I still cling to the hope that we will be able to come and visit you this fall about the time Louis is a year old. But that wouldn't hurt, as far as your coming here is concerned. It is nearly time for Louis to wake up, so I'd better wind this up and get ready to feed him. I'm going to try to write a little better, and a little more often. That may not be so hard to do, since Lou hunted up this typewriter for me. I can type so much faster than I can write that even the mistakes are to be discounted. I've already written to the folks, and if I'm to survive the shock of 2 letters in one day, I'll have to stop. Keep writing, though, and remember, I love you lots.
See? He knew that he needed to get her a typewriter.
Yep.
And he did it.
He did.
And he did it. This is good. This is good. So I just see, I'm looking at this a perspective of they're still like newly married. And you had brought up the point in the previous episode about how it's kind of different because when they first got married, we were in the middle of war and we were, and they were separated for a while. So like, this is really kind of like the beginning of our marriage, take 2.
Yeah.
And navigating some of the difficulties of that, and also they're quite young still. Yeah. They're both in their 20s. They're early 20s, right? So this isn't something that, maybe he was just like, well, I'll just leave her here and it'll be fine. And it's like, no, sir, no. Yeah. But he did, to his credit, he knew that if he got her a typewriter, and did you see what she says? I've written to the folks, and if I'm to survive the shock of writing 2 letters in one day, now that she can write,
now she can really go to town.
He knows that will help.
Yeah.
So good job, sir.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. No car, can't get anywhere, has to deal. But she can pound out these letters on this typewriter. And the ferocity with which she's probably hitting these keys. Now she's still adapting to the keys. So we do see the little typos that were on the screen. They were left in, as we mentioned earlier. So she's still adjusting, and she even gets to her own sense of humor with typos and things like that in the future. But yeah, this is her escape from what's going on in the meantime, as she just takes a breath and keeps waiting for getting out of 936 Springfield Road. And so thank you, Lou, for figuring out how to get a typewriter into her hands. And it also gives us these amazingly detailed letters that we're going to get as the stories continue to go on. That's not to say she doesn't write letters by hand moving forward, but she writes a lot on a typewriter and on the carbons for the family circulars, which we'll talk about at some future point. But that's it. We leave Sweetie still on Memorial Day weekend at 936 Springfield Road, and we'll have to leave unanswered that question of when she's going to get away from 936 Springfield Road. She wants nothing more than to do that, and she's just clinging to hope, clinging to that future that she sees, and hoping she gets to visit the family. And now, hopefully, family gets to visit her, see some sort of family, have something going on in the fall. But we'll find out if that happens in future episodes.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, but until that, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.